Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're looking at 1 Kings 9 and 2 Chronicles 8. And on the surface, it seems like this is fantastic. Everything is coming together. Solomon has so many wonderful accomplishments.
I don't know if fantastic's the right word. It seems pretty straightforward account.
When you start to drill into it,
Yeah.
if you drill into it for any more than what's on the surface, it's like, wait a minute, what?
So as we were reading this, to me, I don't know that, again, like I said, I don't know if I would call this exciting, but it just seems like one of those very straightforward chapters. Like Solomon is like interacting with Hiram or whatever you say. I say it differently than
Hiram Abi? I like that one
whatever.
better.
Yeah. So he's interacting with this guy. They're talking about like the Hiram is not super impressed with the land that he was given. So there's like this talk back and forth between the two of them, but also like Solomon is making like decisions based on how things are going to continue to grow and build and whatever. And on the surface, it seems just like this very straightforward account of what's going on. However, when we start digging in, there were two instances that kind of stuck out to us today as we're reading this semi-straightforward account, where we're talking about as things what are being built again, Ryan? Like what is actually like?
Well, it's a little bit of a recap of things that have already been, like his own house, the Lord's house.
Okay, so it's just referring to those again.
Milos or Millos.
Yeah, you look that up. What is that?
So they are just like terraced walls. They would build these retaining walls basically and put dirt behind the retaining walls so that they could build houses and other buildings.
I mean,
like
very
on
similar to what
slopes.
we've seen kind of today.
Yeah, definitely. Retaining walls remain a
Yeah.
big architectural piece, and so it's advanced for sure for them. So
Yeah.
they're able to build their cities. If you see Israel's landscape, it is very hilly.
But what is interesting though about that is we were talking that advanced kind of architecture or building is, we think, influenced by the Egyptians because there's a pretty tight relationship there because Solomon is married to Pharaoh's daughter. So like there's like this weird relationship, and it seems like at the time, it's so funny, we do these kinds of things today, it seems like a great tie into this like really advanced community of people like the Egyptians, because they would have been the ones that knew how to do a lot of those things, like very far advanced people in that day. But that comes along with a lot of really like, you better be careful kind of situations.
There's some tricky stuff.
Yeah. So we noticed that. That was the first one. We'll dig into that a little bit more. But the other was in 2 Chronicles chapter 8, there's this tiny little passage in verse 11. It says, Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the house that he had built for her. For he said, my wife shall not live in the house of David, king of Israel, for the places to which the ark of the Lord has come are holy. So here we have Solomon and one of his wives, being the Egyptian. Interesting how this Egyptian theme keeps crossing over and over again. That's where all the problems are lying. She's not even allowed to live in the house. Like he actually says, well, this is the holy place. You can't be living here. So we've got two instances of like, this is odd. There's like these weird ties to things that the Lord has already delivered them from. And it's like lingering and it's starting to fester. So we've been talking about this roller coaster idea. We were at the top like 2 days ago. We're like slowly plummeting downward. So you can see how some of these instances are just like taking them from a really great place of like trusting the Lord to like starting to put their trust in other things that he has warned over and over and over about. So those are the two things we saw today. So why don't we dig into the first?
The first being what?
The building. The building with the specific individuals.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So 1 Kings is going to tell us that Pharaoh from Egypt actually went up into Gezer and killed the Canaanites living in that area as a dowry for Solomon's wife.
Which seems like a good thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we're super into just like killing off tons of people.
No, because Canaanites are an enemy of the people of Israel.
So a long-standing thing in this entire Old Testament text has been that the Canaanites are not supposed to be there. A mark of faithfulness to Israel was that Israel was going to be used as an instrument of God's justice against the wicked Canaanites, and they were supposed to kill them off as an act of judgment after God had given them extensive mercy. and nobody does it. A big part of Saul's narrative is that at one point he actually refuses to kill off a city and keeps the best people so that they can continue the work.
Yeah.
So we know from the text in 1 Kings and in 2 Chronicles that Solomon is enlisting forced labor of primarily non-Israelites to do a lot of the construction on these buildings. And these people are not supposed to be in existence. They are supposed to have been judged by God, by the people of Israel. And the people of Israel would know that. They would definitely know that. And so it's a little bit odd. There's two things that will make us wildly uncomfortable in our modern age. The first thing is these people were supposed to be killed off as judgment. They have not been. So it's a little bit odd to make the case that they should not be. They shouldn't be slaves. They should be dead. It's a little bit weird. The second part is when you read over this account and you see that slaves built the temple and Solomon's house and the Milo, that makes you uncomfortable. It is important to remember that when the Bible says slaves, it does not mean what pops into your head when you hear the word slaves. It was compulsory work for sure. They were forced to do the labor. But oftentimes they lived in pretty good circumstances.
I was going to say it's almost like an employment in a way situation.
Yes. I don't want to make it better than what it is. They were forced to do the labor, but most likely they were actually compensated. Most likely they actually lived in pretty good circumstances, and most likely it elevated their financial status, and that is how ancient Hebrew slavery was understood. And so in a lot of ways, that form of indentured servitude or forced labor was a lot of times a positive thing for the individual, even though it makes us uncomfortable today. And I'm trying to explain the context, not trying to make you feel at ease with what's going on.
Yeah, right.
So that is point number one. These people shouldn't be here. And the writer actually includes Pharaoh's daughter, Solomon's wife, in that same piece of text, which means the writer is connecting these two ideas, that these are people who have idols and false gods. Remember, their idols still exist. They're still worshiping someone other than God, and they are at the center of building the temple. It's very bizarre. And so the writer is going to say, hey, these people that don't worship God, oh yeah, and Solomon's wife, who also kind of doesn't worship God, that should cause us to be concerned.
So I think that's like one little tipping point, but then it leads right in to what we were talking about earlier, like an even more obvious one. Because I read it, I was like, oh, this is so uncomfortable on like a couple different levels. So in 2 Chronicles chapter 8, that is where we are reading about like Solomon literally says, well, I have to build a house for my wife because she can't be close to the holy things. And I had made the example too, like, wow, it's like almost like his like little wife on the side kind of deal that he has to like go and put somewhere in a nice little house in the city so that, you know, wives at home don't know or aren't aware. But what's weird is that the wives aren't really the ones that like, I don't think necessarily care about the scandal of it. It's more like he's trying to like, in a way, hide it from God, as if God's presence only exists or God only exists. He's not omnipresent to know the situation or something because she's not close to the Ark of the Covenant. Like, what? I just feel like it's like this really strange, like childlike idea that I can just hide the wife under the rug that nobody should be knowing about, or I guess God shouldn't be knowing about. And it just rubbed me the wrong way in so many ways.
One thing that gets lost on us is that worship of idols in that day was a lot more involved than we assume.
Yeah.
And so when it says, you keep calling out the verse 11, right?
Yes.
My wife shall not be in the house of the Lord because the places to which the ark of the Lord have come are holy. Most likely that is because she's very actively engaged in worshiping the idols of Egypt, which is like there's a lot of life practice that's connected to that. It's not just like, oh, she kind of likes, raw.
No, her life is dedicated
she would be
to it.
regularly worshiping, acting out worship to foreign gods. So this is not like, okay, you need to live over there because you like that other god. No, this is like she's regularly doing worship rituals to foreign gods. That is an abomination to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the fact that Solomon's just like, well, we'll just put you in a different house. It's like, what?
So we have like the problem of not only multiple wives, because that's an issue too. God warns about that. Yep. Like the one wife, he has to put in a completely different location because he's afraid of like the fact that she's worshiping other gods all the time. Like, dude, you don't get to just have all these exceptions to the rules because you're the big guy.
Why didn't he say, hey, we worship Yahweh? Like, we worship the God of Israel here. Like, this is not okay. And we're gonna see the heading for 1 Kings 11 is literally Solomon turns from the Lord.
So it didn't take long.
It's coming soon, and the cracks become wider, and the I don't know, like the dangers become bigger.
So just like crashing down in now. Here we go. Brace yourselves, everyone. We're about to get to some Ecclesiastes too, so there's that.
I think a really fantastic takeaway is we cannot allow any wiggle room in being drawn away from God. I think probably the temptation to serve idols is less than it used to be when it comes to actual rituals, and it's not gone. But I think in our culture, that doesn't seem to draw people away as quickly as just,
It's all the act though. That's what's interesting. It's not because it was God's for them. Like any type of wiggle room. If you are addicted to any type of substance, any wiggle room you give for yourself, you're not helping yourself. I mean, if you have struggles with keeping a healthy like weight or diet, any wiggle room is just allowing for more problems down the road. Any type of relationship that you're in, if you allow for any wiggle room, like outside of that relationship, it is going to crumble and fall because trust like completely falls to the wayside. So like, I think for them, like we can look at it and be like, oh, well, they struggled with gods. Okay, well, again, their problem is not necessarily just the gods. It's the fact that there's wiggle room to allow something else in that doesn't belong.
And Solomon is a fantastic case study because from the introduction of Solomon, it's been like, wait, what? Is that okay or not? Like, I'm not sure. And that's how it happens. It's like, wait a minute, is that okay? Or it sort of feels like you shouldn't be doing that, but maybe
you have to ask the question. It's probably not a good thing.
Yeah. And I understand like that is a common struggle that many people have. And I think as followers of Jesus, as people who love the Lord, God is a jealous God for sure. And he does not appreciate having other gods that we serve on the side.
Yeah, because, I mean, the more I think about it, it's like, why do we want wiggle room? It's for our own comfort.
It's for our own,
Yeah, and it's not because you're seeking out what God wants. Like, sometimes it's not comfortable to have to go and say, hey, wife, I definitely don't agree with the gods that you're dealing with, because that brings up its own set of problems, And so it's very, very interesting, that idea of wiggle room. Like, oh, it feels like a good thing, but it's destructive.
Yesterday we talked about blessed are those whose hope is in the Lord. And when you have wiggle room in your life, you're not hoping in the Lord. You're hoping in all the other stuff.
And you want that comfort. Yeah.
Our challenge to you today is to authentically hope in the Lord. And don't be distracted by all the other stuff. Don't allow yourself any wiggle room.
Exactly.
It's our kids are finally awake, and so we've got to end this episode. Say hi, guys. Can you say hi to the people?
Hi.
We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll see you then. Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.